Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're doing well. Today is a little bit of a different video. I'm doing a story time, which I'm not sure I've ever done before on my channel, but you know what? It's a cold, cozy day here in Scotland. I've just been out. It's Father's Day today, so I've just been out, had a roast dinner. It's been so nice, but I am very full, very tired, very cozy. So I thought this is probably the perfect time to film a story time video. So as the title says, this is the story about when I almost had a heart attack. Couple of things to note before we go into it. This is not clickbait. Yes, I did almost have a heart attack. Say, how can you know if you almost had a heart attack? The doctors told me, but we'll get into it. Number two, please never ever take the stuff in this video as medical advice. If you've had a similar experience or anything like that, please talk in the comments. I'd absolutely love to hear from you, but please don't take what I said as something that you should do, because every single case is completely different and you should really just speak to a medical professional and follow their advice, because I'm absolutely not a medical professional. So just wanted to clear that up out the way first of all. And yeah, I'll just tell you the story of what happened. So really this whole story starts several years ago, where I basically, I'm gonna move this down. I've sat back and reclined, so now my framing's all different. So basically, long story short, a couple of years ago I was diagnosed with hair loss. It wasn't really particularly clear why I was experiencing hair loss. It wasn't alopecia, they knew that. It was hair coming out most likely due to stress. It could be a million different factors. They never really got to the bottom of it, to be honest. I did so many tests, so many things. I went to private healthcare, state healthcare, like I tried everything, just trying to figure out what was happening, because at some points I had like barely any hair left. It was crazy. You can probably see in my videos, I tried to sort of hide it when it was really bad, but you can, if you go back far enough in my videos, you can kind of see that I've had quite a lot of hair in one video and then hardly any in the next, and it's been like this, and it still is like this as a journey. I don't have anywhere near as much hair as I used to have those many years ago, but anyway, I had this, doesn't matter the cause. Long story short, they were just trying to constantly find different medicine to help me, to basically stop whatever hormone or whatever it was that was causing my hair to fall out, even though they didn't really know what the cause was. And nothing was really working, and some things had really bad side effects. But eventually they got to basically this last medicine. They were like, we think this is going to work, but it's quite a dangerous medicine. So I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? Basically, it increases your chance of getting a blood clot quite significantly. It doubles your risk of getting a blood clot. So I was kind of like, okay. So I kind of tried it, because they thought there's no point worrying about it if it doesn't even work. So I was put on the medicine. Obviously I'm paraphrasing a lot of different things that went on, but kind of condensing it into a smaller version. So I tried this medicine and it is amazing. It was so good. Not only was no more hair falling out, but my hair was actually growing back, which they didn't think was going to happen. They thought, you've lost the hair you've lost, we've just got to try and keep the hair you've got. But this hair was actually growing back, and like, you know, my confidence was growing. I wasn't feeling so depressed, because as much as I hate to admit it, losing my hair was really affecting my self-esteem and how I was feeling. And you know, I didn't want to go outside and want people to see me. So you know, it was doing absolute wonders. So I spoke to the doctor and I was basically like, this is amazing. They were like, okay, so we really need to go over what long-term side effects could be, which is, long story short, your chances of a blood clot could double. So I was like, okay, it doesn't sound great. But they kind of went on to say that, number one, let's say a human's chance, a general healthy human's chance of getting a blood clot in their life is 2%, then my chances would be 4%. It's not like the likelihood increased a lot. On top of that, just going off my demographics and my general health and things like that, they were like, you know, you're probably in the best possible state you could be to be on this medicine. Like, you've got none of the other risk factors of getting a blood clot. You know, if you were going to go on this medicine, you're probably like the best kind of person to be on it. Like, for example, pregnant women can't go on it because their chance of getting a blood clot is already high, and then you add that on top of it, you know, things like that. So I was like, you know what, this is making me feel so much better. I'm willing to take the risk. You can probably see where this is going, but I was like, you know what, I'm 100% good to take the risk, because I feel so much better. It's doing so many good things for me. I'm feeling 0 side effects, what have you. So I was on that medicine for about a year, and all was well, all was totally good. Until it wasn't. But literally out the blue, I just started to feel dizzy quite a lot. And I get that sometimes, you know, like if you get out of bed too quick, or, you know, whatever, sometimes you feel a little bit dizzy. This was totally different. This wasn't just a little bit dizzy. This was like, oh my God, I'm going to at least fall over, if not pass out. Like, I could not control myself. And I don't faint, I don't pass out, I'm not that person at all. It happened once in my life because I was in so much pain, like a decade ago. So this doesn't happen to me. I'm not used to it at all. A little bit dizzy, sure, but like having to actually stop what I was doing and like grab onto the wall never happened. So this started to happen and it was very weird. And I've seen a lot of other people's stories talking about different health things that they've got going on. Please, if you start to get really, really dizzy, go to the doctor, because 9 times out of 10, it's something that you need checked out regardless. But I didn't. And then one morning, I bent down to pet Jolene, who you might see at some point. She's behind me somewhere. No, she must be exactly behind me. I went down to pet Jolene, who was on the floor, and I was out. I fainted, and I could feel it happening as well. It was that same dizzy spell, and normally the sofa was next to me, so I kind of grabbed onto it, and normally if I just do that and pause for a minute, I'll kind of come back to it, but nope, I went. And I was out probably for like a second. I mean, I was not lying there on the floor, it was like a second, but I still passed out. And I was just kind of like, I woke up and looked at Jolene, and I was like, whoa. That was literally all I did, whoa. So then I messaged like everyone I knew, because this is such an unusual thing to me. I just passed out. Now you can see how being unwell was so out of my brain that I wasn't even really worried about it. I was just kind of like, what a cool story, guys. This is crazy. I just passed out, because I felt totally fine when I got back up again. And I was like, my parents got home and I was like, you won't believe this. They were like, yeah, this is crazy. Anyway, didn't happen again, so just kind of moved on. But over the next couple of weeks, that dizziness still kept hitting me, and I didn't pass out, but I really had to like just hold on to something and wait a little while. Otherwise I probably would have passed out. And it did get kind of scary, but then after a while it just disappeared and it just stopped. So I was like, okay, great. Bear in mind, hindsight is a wonderful thing. You know, I sound kind of silly now, but in hindsight you'd think, yeah, you should have looked into that. But at the time it wasn't a thing. Anyway, so I felt totally fine again, totally normal for a good couple of weeks, maybe a month. And then I started to get this really sharp pain in my chest, in the left side of my chest. So obviously a bit of a worry, that's where your heart is. You kind of need your heart. And like, especially when I breathed in and out, it was just really painful. So again, I was like, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of weird heartburn, indigestion, something like that. So I left a little while, but after a couple of days, it was still sore. And so I was like, you know what? I should probably go to the doctor about my heart hurting. Bear in mind, at this point, I'd forgotten that I ever felt dizzy or passed out or anything like that. So I went to my local GP doctor. I was just like, you know, I've got this really sore pain in my chest. I think I'd just rather it was checked out so I could just kind of sleep easy at night. So she had a look and she was like, yeah, that's really weird. Like, not really too sure. It's very strange. Like, we probably do want to get you checked out properly, but, you know, couldn't really say. She was like, have you been ill at all recently? And I was like, no. Oh, actually, it's like I passed out like a month ago for the first time ever and had these crazy dizzy spells. And she was like, did you pass out, or did you just feel faint? I was like, no, I passed out. And she was like, I was like, oh no. She was like, that's really good. You've told me. That's really important. I was like, damn, like she probably thinks I'm so stupid. Like I didn't even think about it. So she kind of, you know, did a little research, type things up and whatever, and was like, okay, I can't remember what she thought it was, but it wasn't anything major. It was something that was just like, I'll give you some medicine, it was go away on its own. I don't remember what it was. She was like, I'm pretty confident that based on like your demographics and all this kind of thing, but there's a very small chance it's a pulmonary embolism. And that's basically where, if you don't know, you get a blood clot somewhere in your body, most likely your legs, and it travels up to your lungs and causes a clot in your lungs, which can obviously lead to bleeding in your lungs, and it causes a really big strain on your heart. So that's why she was worried about that. So it can be really, really serious, and I don't want to scare anyone who's come here because you've got a pulmonary embolism. I mean, it can lead to heart attacks and things like that, but at the same time, 9 times out of 10 it gets treated and you're all right, which is, spoiler alert, the case with me. So this don't worry, nothing bad happens in this story. I don't want to scare anyone, but I, like, for example, I wasn't really sure what it was, so while she was talking to me, I was googling it, and it comes up with so many scary things. But actually, you know, when you actually listen to your doctor and talk about it, it's not that bad. The internet just scares you a lot. Anyway, that was a tangent. So she was like, you know, she agreed with me. I felt the exact same as her. I was like, you don't want to lie in bed thinking, oh, what if it was, I was like, I'm willing to go and wait for 6 hours in A&E to figure out what it is, and if it's not a blood clot, perfect, at least I know. I'm happy to do that waiting. So she was like, yeah, absolutely. So went up to A&E. It wasn't like a zoom situation. I took my time. I think I had lunch first, then went up to A&E. So they did a bunch of tests, but I remember one thing is that normally in A&E you're waiting like at least 2-3 hours. You can have a broken bone. I broke my tailbone once. I was waiting for hours to be seen. This one, and it was a busy day, I was rushed in. I was like urgent, like priority. And I remember at that time thinking, because with hindsight, obviously pulmonary embolisms can lead to heart attacks, and I was there with serious chest pain. I think they were just like, we really need to make sure that she's not going to have a heart attack on us right now. So I got zoomed through, which was great. It was a very short time. But they did all sorts. They took some bloods, took a pee sample, checked my blood pressure, you know, all that kind of thing. And I remember again, so I got rushed through, like I was seen immediately. They were like, we really want to see you soon, like really quick and things like that. I was like, And then they took my blood pressure. Oh, and they had the same concerned look as the doctor did when I told them about the fainting and the sore heart, and obviously that was on that medicine as well. They were like, okay. And then they took my blood pressure, whatever it is, you know, where they squeeze the machine, it gets tighter and tighter around your arm. Now I've always aced that, just to say, they've always like, you've got perfect blood pressure every time my whole life, and I've had to get it done quite a lot. This time they were like, your blood pressure is really high. And I was like, what? Because I was expecting best blood pressure I've ever seen, as I normally get. And I was like, oh, that's unusual. They were like, you normally got really good blood. I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, look, you're here in the hospital. It's quite a stressful thing. You're probably pretty nervous. That'll raise your blood pressure. We'll come back in like 15 minutes and do it again and just try and relax. And I did. I just chilled on my phone. I did feel more relaxed. Did it a second time. She was like, okay, well, it's less than it was before, but it's still really high. Obviously they were saying all these things in a much more professional way. I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but she was like, it's really high. So I then had to go for a chest x-ray to see what was going on, and also there was I can't remember exactly what the test was, but there was another test, and it would either say yes, you have a blood clot, or maybe you have a blood clot. No, I'm wrong. It was either no or maybe. That's what it was. So if the test came back a no, I could go home. There was no blood clot in my body. Well, they'd have to do other tests, but it wasn't that. Maybe means it could very well still be no, or it could be yes, in which case I'd have to come back and they'd have to do further tests. So it was no or maybe. But that test took a while. So I was basically just chilling in A&E. I had like a little bed thing, so I was all right. I was just chilling, but it gave me lots of time to think. And I remember sitting there, I was like, the doctors absolutely ran me through A&E to try and get this through as fast as possible. The GP was concerned. The doctors are concerned. My blood pressure is really high. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've got a pulmonary embolism. Like, this just won't be whatever the doctor said it could be back in the GP surgery. I don't remember what it is now, but I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got a pulmonary embolism. Jolene, what are you barking at? Where is she? Oh, there she is. Can you see her? There's lots of noises going on. Jolene. Right, I took her out. So I was sitting there and basically like, yeah, I've got a pulmonary embolism. And obviously I was Googling and getting really concerned and kind of panicking, and I didn't really like needles, and I knew it would involve like a lot more blood tests and things like that. I was just kind of like, ugh. Anyway, the doctor came back and was like, it came back maybe. You know, it was either no or maybe. It came back maybe. So I was like, great. And then at that point I was like, I've got a pulmonary embolism. Anyway, he was like, you need to come back tomorrow, because that's when we'll be able to do a full CT scan, and then we'll be able to know for sure, because basically everything's coming back really inconclusive and we just can't say which way or whatever. So they sent me home, and I was a bit like, but because one thing I didn't mention is that they said the reason they were rushing me through right before I left is because I could very well have a heart attack, because it turns out this is kind of going on information in the future, but turns out I had a blood clot in my leg that I never knew I had. Like, I had no idea. If it hadn't been for all this heart stuff, I would never have known I had a blood clot in my leg. And it obviously traveled up to my lungs, leading to a pulmonary embolism, and that was putting a lot of strain on my heart, which is why my heart was hurting, and also why I passed out those times, because it was working too hard. Basically, my body just short-circuited, and why I was feeling so dizzy and things like that. Oh, she's coming back. Take your spot. There we go. Okay, now Jolene's back. We can continue. So basically they were like, you were very close, we think, to having a heart attack. Like, if you'd let this continue on and not come to see us and things like that, they were like, likelihood is it would have resulted in a heart attack. And that could have been another day, another month, another year, whatever, but it would have led to a heart attack. So I was just like, I just thought I should probably just casually see the doctor about my chest. Like, geez, thank God. And I also ended up going back to that original GP and saying thank you for considering that it could have been a pulmonary embolism, because it seemed so unlikely at the time. But obviously it was because of her that it then went further. So I gave her a big thank you. So spoiler alert, it was a pulmonary embolism. Anyway, so I went home that night, the night before going back again to do further tests. And I was kind of like, you just said I could have a heart attack at any minute. Like, I kind of feel like I should stay overnight in the hospital. And like, when I rang my parents and stuff, they were like, so are you staying overnight? It's like, no, I'm driving home now. Like, I don't know, it was kind of weird. Anyway, slept that night, went back again the next day, but that was a bit slower because that was like an appointment rather than rushing through A&E, so I was in different departments. So I got a CT scan. So if you've never had that before, it was kind of, or a CAT scan, I don't know if they're the same thing, but it was kind of nuts. It's one of those where you go into the big tunnel, they like slide you through and you're not allowed to move, and they kind of like scan your whole body. But they were wanting to see inside my veins, because that's what the test the previous day hadn't managed to do, which was why everything was so inconclusive. They needed to see what was in the veins to see if there was a clot, like a blockage. So they, oh, it was so horrible, I'm not going to go into detail, but they injected some kind of liquid into me that means that in the x-ray my veins would like show up really bright, so it would be easy to see what was in there. And first of all, I hate needles. I had to keep it in my arm for hours. I was like, I hate it. The CAT scan was only 5 minutes, but they wanted to keep it in me until we got the results, in case I needed to do it again because the results didn't work or something, and they didn't want to go through the whole thing again. So I was just sitting there with this needle in my arm like, I hate this. I could go wherever I want. I could leave the hospital, I could go here, there and everywhere. I just had to keep it in my arm. It's like, I hate this so much. Anyway, that didn't happen anyway. So they injected me with something and they were like, this might end up feeling like you need to pee. Like, okay, so I could kind of feel it going through my body, and it was a little bit of a weird tingly sensation, but I was just kind of like, all right. Then a couple minutes later I was like, I have just peed myself. Like, I cannot explain to you, unless you've had it done, how much it feels like you have peed yourself, even though they tell you. Thank God they told me, otherwise I literally would start crying. But it was, I went like beet red. I was like, oh my God. Anyway, you had to stay really still, so I was like, whatever. And I came back out and it said to the woman, I was like, can you just double check I didn't realize? So she was like, you haven't, I promise. I was like, okay, thank God. Strangest sensation I've ever experienced in my whole life. Anyway, so I had to hang around the hospital for a couple hours till they got around to like assessing my results and stuff. Sat down with the doctor. They were like, you've got a pulmonary embolism. At that point I was kind of like, yeah. Yeah, I know. It was still a little bit of a shock because obviously the day before I had no clue. So it was a crazy 24 hours, but within that 24 hours I'd kind of resigned myself to my fate, which was that I had a pulmonary embolism. So I wasn't that surprised or emotional or anything, but I suppose I was a little bit worried about what that would involve, especially since knowing that I'm still technically sitting here at risk of having a heart attack any second. Like, the pain's not gone. They've not actually done anything to fix it. They've just diagnosed it. So they put me on blood thinners. I should probably point out that it was about 6 months ago that this all happened. They put me on blood thinners and were like, the thing is, we don't actually know what's caused the... No, you know, I was put on blood thinners. We'll keep one thing at a time. And that was in order for it to thin my blood to eventually dissolve the blood clot. It's essentially what it was. They were like, we can't necessarily, like, by doing that, that will reduce my chance of having a heart attack. It will make my lungs better, all the rest of it. And I had to take it like several times a day. I think 3 or 4 times a day I had to take a blood thinner. And obviously that greatly increased my risk. Like, if I cut myself or if I was in a serious, you know, accident, that I would more likely to die because I was on blood thinners, so the blood wouldn't stop gushing. Sorry for using the word gushing. So there was a lot of sort of scary side effects to being on blood thinners, but at the same time I was like, well, this is what I need to do. This is what's going to reduce the risk of having a heart attack. Like, that it's basically the only option. And they said you're going to be on this for like 6 to 8 months. So I'm still on them now, but on a slightly reduced dose. And if you come back and you find that we've not reduced the blood clot, then we'll have to go in for surgery and do that, which is fine. But obviously I'd prefer not to go into surgery. So at this point in the story, I'm still not actually cured. Like, I haven't had the x-ray. It's been 6 months, no x-ray. I don't know if I've still got the blood clot in me or not. But literally within a week of being on the blood thinners, I didn't have any pain in my chest anymore. And generally I felt like my health improved, like my breathing improved and things like that. So when I had a week follow-up on the phone with the doctor, I was like, I definitely think it's doing something, which is great. The other issue they had was that they didn't know what the cause of the blood clot was. So for a lot of people, when they get diagnosed with a pulmonary embolism, they have to do a massive lifestyle change because it's probably, I don't know, diet or, you know, underlying other health issues and things like that. But we talked about it and we were so confident that it was the medicine, because it did increase the risk of blood clot, that they were like, okay, what we want you to do is basically stay in the same lifestyle you've got now, but stop taking that medicine and we'll see if that helps. And like my GP and stuff were all like, it's 100% the medicine. So I feel pretty confident that it's not some other underlying health issue or anything like that. I think it is the medicine. So I haven't taken that for about 6 months, which is a real shame. I'm on some other sort of trial medicine to see, actually I can't remember what it's for, but it's not for hair loss. It's for something completely different, to try and see if that would help my hair. It's not made it fall out anymore, but it's certainly not, it doesn't grow anymore. Like, I don't get more hair growing. It's still really thin, which is a real shame because that's a real knock to my confidence. But at the same time, I'd rather that than have a heart attack. Do you know what I mean? Like, you gotta kind of pick your battles here. So yeah, that's basically where we were. So there's a very real chance that had I left it another couple of days, I would have had a heart attack, which is kind of insane when you're a fairly healthy, at the time, 28-year-old person. So it was all just a bit of a crazy situation. I was thinking about it the other day because I'm obviously coming up to the point where I'm probably going to get my x-ray to see how things are going. And I was like, you know what, that's kind of a crazy story. Like, even all the hospital staff were kind of surprised about it. They were like, you're just not the sort of demographic of people that come in with a pulmonary embolism. But I mean, it can happen to anyone. So yeah, it was a bit of a crazy situation. I just thought it was kind of a funny, maybe, I find it funny, it's not funny, but I find it funny, story of just a weird situation I was in. And I didn't really have the energy to do any sort of big videos this week, so this is what you got. But I hope you enjoyed it. Crazy story. If you've gone through something similar, let me know in the comments. I don't need any sympathy or anything like that. Like, I'm fine, I'm gonna be fine. I can feel in my bones that I don't have the blood clot anymore, even though I've not had the x-ray. I'm just waiting to get off the blood thinners, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope it made any sense. I didn't have a script or anything, so Lord knows if I even said the right things. Please subscribe because we've got new videos coming out every Sunday, and I'll see you next week. Bye.